Hello everyone, Reginald Scott here. Welcome to the video. Great to see you all again, and I hope you're all doing really well today. If you could do me a massive favor as usual, and don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share with a friend, all that good stuff if you do enjoy the content. And we do a wide variety of content on this channel. Not all the videos are like this, so if you don't like this kind of content, I'm sure there's something else on my channel you will enjoy. Now today I'm giving my personal opinion on this frame that Pete Talk has been recently pushing very hard. I'm going to give you my opinion on perhaps why that's going on, and I'm also going to say why I personally would never buy such a frame, nor would I ever recommend anybody else to do so. And the reason I'm doing this is because I noticed in the comments on his channel a lot of people are now clamoring to get hold of a frame like this, or indeed this frame, and I just wanted to give an alternative perspective on this thing, because like I say, it's been pushed very hard by Pete Talk. He's already made 3 videos on the thing, and he said he's going to make considerably more videos on it, and even before he'd built up the bike, like literally getting the bike out the box, he was already giving it some fantastic accolades. Okay, so I feel like the review of this bike is somewhat biased and might be motivated by some personal gain. Okay, so what's the background to all of this? Basically, this company called Framework, I shall show you their website. Here it is. This is the Framework website. Not to be confused with Frameworks with an S, who is an already well-established producer of bike frames, completely different company. The controversial cyclist who's been very on the ball recently with calling things out, and he's been giving some rather good assessments, in my opinion, on certain people on YouTube and certain videos on YouTube, has already pointed out this farce of a name or nomenclature going on here. The fact that this newish company, or previously unheard of bike manufacturer company, chose the name Framework when another company exists with almost the identical name. This engineer guy who builds these bike frames, and his background supposedly is in doing odd jobs for other manufacturers with his engineering workshop, decided to get into the world of high-end bespoke bicycles, as if we don't have enough high-end bespoke bicycle manufacturing going on already. But he decided to throw his hat into the ring and get involved in this, and I guess what he realized was that in order to get his name out there, in order to get his product out there, the most effective way to market that product was to get people on YouTube talking about it. And the interesting thing about marketing your product this way is it's extremely cheap, because a lot of YouTubers will sell themselves out for very little money. Some of them will sell themselves out for just a simple gift, and I think some of that is going on in this situation as well. So what this guy from Frameworks did was he sent one of his frames to Pete Talk for free, fully customed, everything Pete Talk wanted, FOC, free of charge. Pete Talk has accepted that product, and now he's doing all these promotional videos about it. Talking about this subject, I was actually offered a pair of carbon wheels from a Chinese manufacturer recently, but I think last month, and I turned them down because they wanted too many things from me in order to accept those carbon wheels. They were basically $2,000 worth of carbon wheels for free. That's what they were going to give me, but they wanted creative control to some extent over how I would announce the products and how I would review the products. So they said, you can say anything you want, you'll have free control over your opinions and everything, except before you post the video, you're going to send it to us and we're going to tell you if we agree with it or not. So basically they were controlling what I would be able to say about the product, and I said no thank you, because and again, like I say, I hold my audience in high enough regard, I give them enough respect not to sell out for a couple of grand. But they say their frames start from $7,750 US, and I can guarantee you, when you look at bespoke frame builders like this, everything that you add to the process is an additional cost. because with these kind of companies, there's no such thing as an off-the-shelf product. Everything is customized. So you want different geometry, that's probably going to be an on cost. You want the stem, that's going to be on cost. You want the fork, that's going to be on cost. Everything's going to be an on cost, okay? It doesn't even come with a seat post, all right? It's just a frame before everything else gets added to it. So $7,750. He was sent this for free, like the UK politicians have been receiving, right, from wealthy donors and interest groups and things in the UK during when the Labour Party was elected. They were criticised for accepting so many expensive gifts, like tickets to concerts and things, which again cost around £2,000. To put it in context, they were heavily criticised for corruption, for accepting those gifts, because then you're basically biasing yourself in favour of whoever's giving that gift. This is $8,000. So that's more money than some of our UK politicians were gifted as bribes. What could you get for this kind of money? Okay, let's go look at the specialized tarmac. Now this is going to come up later in the video because the way that this frame is constructed. Okay, we're going to do a direct comparison. So remember the way that this frame is constructed. It's made out of a bi-material construction. We've got aluminium lugs and carbon fiber tubes glued together. For $4,826.97 US, you can get yourself a specialized S-Works tarmac, complete with seat post and fork. Okay, all included, and you can pick your color as well. Isn't that a nice red? I rather like that, actually. What a lovely red. Modern carbon bikes, they do come in very sparkly colors, don't they? And that's not an on cost. You can look, the price doesn't go up depending on which color you choose. Okay, so the S-Works tarmac, this is not my opinion, but this is kind of just the general internet opinion. The S-Works tarmac is probably considered one of the best carbon fiber high-end bicycle frames you can possibly buy. This one is disc brake, just like the framework bike, and you're saving yourself what, a couple of grand at least. We'll come back to this later. Next option, we have here Bastion cycles. Now Bastion is a very well established, custom, prestigious bicycle brand that makes very similar designed bicycle frames to these, but this Bastion bike, gorgeous as it is, will set you back for the frame set $6,900 USD. Okay, so again, considerably cheaper than the framework offering. Okay, right, and now final option I have here to show you today is this one. This is the top end road disc offering from Lightspeed. I do not endorse these bikes, by the way, because they're all disc brake, and I wouldn't touch a disc brake road bike with a barge pole. But I'm just saying, if that's your thing and you're looking to spend $7,000-8,000 on a bicycle frame, what could you also get for that money? And actually, you can get one of these bikes built up complete for $6,000. Okay, $6,000 will get you one of these bikes completely built. But if you just want the frame set, and what I did was this, I clicked on all the options. I added custom colorways for the graphics. I added custom colors for the headset components and the seat post. I selected what kind of finish I wanted on the frame. I added the titanium seat post, which is an additional cost. I added the fork, which is an additional cost. And like I say, all those options, I didn't go for the T47BB. Don't bother with T47, it's a waste of time. Stick with the PF30, it's a much better option for a well-machined metal frame. All that together only sets me back $3,926.25, right, USD. So almost half the price. And this is a full titanium bike frame made by a company that's worked for NASA, made by a company that's been in the titanium frame building game for 30 years. Well, actually no, more than that, nearly 40 years, because they were established, was it 1 year after I was born? So like 40 years. They've been going 40 years. So yeah, 40 years making Thai bikes, work for NASA. Pretty nice bike. Okay. Again, I don't endorse disc brakes, but... So that is what we're talking here. And we're going to get on to why I think you'd have to be mentally ill to choose this over any of those other options. Okay, take a listen to this.
Comes to shipping these things, custom making axle holders in the box, custom making a wooden framework in the box so they don't move around in shipping, and he just does everything right which the bike industry does wrong. That's how I would explain it. Now obviously there's a cost associated with doing those things right, but it's for the love of the engineering, for the love of the...
Right, so Pete talk here, he talks about the axle holders in the box, which we're going to get on to have a look at. And he states that this guy does everything right that the bike industry gets wrong. Okay? Now, like I say, to me, that suggests by doing everything right that other people are doing wrong, that makes for a perfect product. So, in a roundabout way, from my perspective, Pete Talk is suggesting that these bikes are perfect. I think that's a very big claim to make on a bicycle frame he hasn't even ridden yet. I mean, he's not even put bearings in the frame. Look, the BB is still empty. The headset isn't cut. The steerer tube isn't cut. It's literally fresh out the box, and he's already saying, well, this is basically perfect, this bike, because this masterful engineer framework, it's everything else that every other bike company gets wrong in the world, he gets right. Wow. Big statement. Very big statement. And what you have here is this jig or setup inside the cardboard box. So you notice the cardboard box, you can see the space between the side of the frame and the box here. It's just an air gap. It doesn't show any evidence of any packing material inside the box, so I can assume there wasn't any, that it was just an empty box with this thing screwed down to the frame. You've got an axle holder with a through axle going through. You've got this wooden plank, and then from the wooden plank there extends two more wooden strips, which I assume go to the front of the bike and hold the fork in place during transit. Okay, so both the rear and the front of the bike are basically screwed down inside the box to this wooden framing. This to me is not a good way to transport a fragile, because made of carbon fiber, a fragile bicycle frame. I actually think this is a really bad way of transporting a bicycle frame, and I'll explain why. So when I would get bike frames sent to me from other companies, and I'm just talking about a frame set, frame and fork, they would always be shipped with the fork out of the frame. Okay, so the fork wrapped separately. Usually the fork would be wrapped in some kind of polystyrene foam, and then the frame would be put in a plastic bag for Lightspeed, or some other brands wrap in foam around the frame, and then they place it in a box, and around the frame they pack other packing material, usually paper or maybe little foam chips and things. And so the frame itself is free floating inside the box. The frame is not screwed down to anything. It can basically move around inside the box. Example, martial arts. Okay, is it better when someone tries to hit you to stand there and take the impact solidly, or is it better to roll with the punch? It's better to roll with the punch, because if you roll with the punch, you deflect some of the energy. Okay? If something hits the box, the cardboard is soft, the cardboard will flex. That will take some of the impact out of the hit. And then the frame, if the frame actually gets contacted by the inside of the box that's being pushed in from the outside, the frame will move. So the frame can get knocked out the way, and that prevents the frame from actually getting broken. You know, you might get a scuff mark on the frame or something potentially, but at least the frame can move out the way, and that reduces the impact on the frame. In this scenario, we can see that the box, the wooden plank that the frame is attached to, is completely filling the base of the box. So that can't move anywhere because there's no gap for it to move at all. And the frame is fully fixed to that position. So if anything comes in from the side, and you can see there's very little room here, especially on this side of the box. I don't know whether that's an optical illusion or whether that really is that close to the frame. Judging by the angles and what I can see, I can only assume. If something does come in and hits, you can actually tell from the shadow, actually, that it is very close. Look how close the shadow is. To me, that looks very close. If something comes in and hits that, that frame can't move. So it's going to receive 100% of the impact. And then the next thing I would say is all of this screws and plastic and wood and chipboard or fiberboard, whatever you want to call it, all of that stuff weighs a lot. That's extra weight. All of this is running down the entire length of the box, and you're going to have another block of wood at the front end of the box, very similar to this block of wood at the back. That's heavy. It would be much better to insert polystyrene around this bike frame to hold it in position, not this wood. So essentially, you're going to pay for more weight in the packing material because of all this wood, and that's going to cost the customer more to ship it. So this, in my opinion, is the wrong way to ship a bike frame. But Pete Talk says, this guy does everything right. Alright, you can debate whether you agree or not. So, next is the weight of this frame. Okay.
Not the lightest. I'm going to say this is not the lightest frame. I'm not even going to bother weighing it because it's going to be more than your normal carbon frame. I'm not even going to...
Let's hear that again. Let's hear that again.
But not the lightest. I'm going to say this is not the lightest frame. I'm not even going to bother weighing it because it's going to be more than your normal carbon frame because of the level of machining.
Right. Okay, so imagine this. Somebody sends you an $8,000 custom-made bike frame, and you want to present this bike frame to your viewers and give them a reasonable and unbiased review of this bike frame, because all of the people who are watching the Pete Talk channel are potential customers of this frame. And he says, I'm not even going to bother weighing it. One of the biggest factors next to the colour is how much the thing weighs, especially in the road bike world, because weight is one of the most important factors next to aerodynamics. It's the thing that most customers ask you about when you're selling them a bike frame. How much does it weigh? And I think that basically says that this bike frame is so heavy, so monumentally heavy, that he's embarrassed by the weight. I can almost guarantee you, I can't guarantee you, but I can almost guarantee you that he has weighed this frame. And because he's weighed it, he's decided he better not tell you the weight, because there's going to be some disparaging comments as a result of that. That's what I'm thinking. Now, so we are never going to know the weight of this frame. Okay, and here's the funny part. See his face here. Now, this is pure speculation on my part. I just thought it was interesting. You hear him talk about the weight, and then you hear him give his excuses as to why the thing weighs so much. Listen to his excuses and look at his facial expression.
I'm going to say this is not the lightest frame. I'm not even going to bother weighing it because it's going to be more than your normal carbon frame.
Now,
because of the level of machining and the kind of aluminium artwork on display.
Let me show you that again. Just look at the facial expression.
Aluminium art. Your normal carbon frame because of the level of machining.
You see that sort of squint that he does, and the way the tone of voice changes. That's how I sound when I'm not certain about something. And I think what he's not certain about is whether you're buying his BS. Because he's making excuses for why this frame is so heavy. And his excuse is, well, it's got aluminium artwork. But are you buying my poor excuses for why I didn't weigh this bike frame? Or why I'm not going to tell you the weight of the bike frame? So, again, let's go back to our comparisons. Definitely going to be lighter. It's almost 100% certain that that one there is going to be lighter. The Bastion bike is made from carbon fiber and titanium. And it's 3D printed titanium. We'll get onto this again in a moment. I'm pretty certain the Bastion Cycles frame will also be lighter. I'm pretty certain that this thing, which is the lightest titanium road bike you can buy right now, in disc, is going to be lighter than the Frameworks bike. Again, please, somebody, prove me wrong. I'd love to know. So, the next thing I noticed about this thing was the bottom bracket design of this bike.
works, but we've got a press fit bottom bracket. Now, I don't want to hear anyone moaning about press fit bottom brackets, because this isn't a press fit bottom bracket in the bicycle industry. It's just a press fit bearing, how it would be made in all types of engineering machinery in industry. This is just how it's done in cars, planes, trains, automobiles, whatever. It's going to be the same in here. So John has carefully kept that diameter and alignment perfect, and you'll see when we put cranks in how well this is aligned.
Right, first part of that is he's suggesting that no other bikes can align a bottom bracket well, which is not true, because like I say, I've demonstrated in the past, you know, other full metal bottom bracket bikes can be very well aligned. And the other thing about this is he says that this is the same bottom bracket as you will find in trains or cars, you know, in the car industry. This is a press fit bearing into aluminium. And if you think back almost a decade ago now, and you look at Cannondale, and Cannondale came out with like a lot of the CAD series of aluminium frames, and they all had press fit BB30. So they all had BB30, which was bearings, steel bearings, with steel racers pressed directly into the frame. Trek did something similar. They now have stopped doing it, I believe, but they did something similar, which I believe was called BB90, again, where they pressed steel bearings into carbon fiber. Now, the problem with pressing steel bearings into aluminium and or carbon fiber is that aluminium and carbon fiber are softer than steel. And so what you end up doing is, if when you press them in you don't get them perfectly straight, which is very easy to do with the kind of the bearing presses we have in the bike industry, which are not particularly precision. So it is more than possible to gouge or to press in at an angle a steel bearing into a soft aperture like an aluminium frame or like a carbon frame. And what the Cannondale bikes, what you found with the Cannondale bikes, one of the biggest complaints was creaking from the bottom bracket. And the reason those bikes creaked is because, number one, poor installation. That's a problem. And also, when you come to remove the bearings from this type of system, it's very easy again to gouge or damage the softer part of the frame, or the soft frame being aluminium or carbon fiber, with those steel bearings. If you've got a steel frame or a titanium frame, those two things, steel on steel, absolutely fine. Steel on titanium, even better, because so you're not going to have any problems whatsoever pressing in and out bearings from that kind of frame. My PF30 that I have on my Lightspeed, again, it's the best example I have, so that's why I keep bringing it up, isn't one where you press a bearing directly into the frame. You use a cup. And what's good about the cup is the cup, again, is usually made out of a softer material because it's sacrificial. So with a bearing cup, you have either plastic, Delrin or whatever, you have a plastic which gets pressed into titanium, absolutely no chance of that damaging the titanium whatsoever, or you have aluminium pressed into titanium. Again, if anything's going to break or give or gouge, it's going to be the aluminium, not the harder material, which is the titanium. The reverse is the case in this situation. The engineering is good, the material choice is bad. So what we have here is technology that's been around since the 90s, okay? And I'm old enough to remember the 90s. What we have is basically how bikes were originally always made, with steel, okay? So what you had was steel tubes, and they would be brazed, which is like welding, but it's not welding. Call it glue if you like. It's a kind of gluing process. You braze in the steel tubes into steel lugs. When carbon fiber came along, a lot of people didn't know how to use it as a material, okay? It was still early days, and so what they did was they actually took aluminium lugs, because that was easy to machine, and then they took carbon fiber tubes and they inserted them into the aluminium lugs. And from the perspective of a bespoke frame maker, this makes a lot of sense, because with a frame like this, if you need to make a different size frame, it's very easy. All you have to do is get your lugs together, which could in some instances be basically the same lugs, and just cut the tubes to size. Now, granted, if the customer needs a longer or shorter head tube or a different head tube angle, that has to be factored in. but it's still a lot simpler in process than making a modern carbon bike, which is made in a mold. And the modern carbon bike is initially very labor intensive, because you have to make a mold, you have to machine an individual mold for that frame. And so for a custom workshop, that would be impossible to do, because you would need literally a different mold for every customer. So from a frame builder, a bespoke frame builder's perspective, this is a great way of doing this. And that is the main reason, I believe, why this frameworks guy has picked this style of engineering. It makes sense from a production perspective for his small workshop. However, there is a big problem with this kind of frame that they discovered in the 90s, which is galvanic corrosion. Now, galvanic corrosion occurs when you've got two dissimilar materials next to each other, and then you have some kind of electrolyte, usually like salt water or sweat or something like that. You get basically electrochemical reaction, and it breaks down the aluminium, turns it into an aluminium oxide, and you also get a breakdown in the bond strength. Okay, and so there's the potential there for these frames to fail. Now, there's a very lengthy 2-hour-long marketing fluff piece that Pete Talk and this guy do together. I haven't watched it all because I'm just not interested in sitting through 2 hours of them talk about his product. But I did dip into it, and they do talk in great length about galvanic corrosion and all the ways that this guy has tried to prevent galvanic corrosion from occurring. However, he gives absolutely no guarantees whatsoever that it won't galvanically corrode. Okay.
It's impossible for me to say that, galvanic corrosion can't occur. That's just not, I'm not comfortable saying that. I think that the likelihood of it occurring is remotely rarely. We've done...
Right, so he's literally, straight from the horse's mouth, he's saying, I've done all these things to try and prevent galvanic corrosion. Fantastic. He's admitted, as Pete Talk has admitted, that galvanic corrosion is a potential hazard of buying this kind of bike frame. If you buy this kind of bike frame, or this kind of bike frame, and to some extent this kind of bike frame, you aren't going to get that problem. So he's using aluminium instead of titanium. Like I say, Bastian Cycles, they use titanium. And let's have a look at some of these joints on this frame. This is a good example. So you see here this rather large step in between the tube and the joint with the aluminium frame. There's even an air gap going all the way around here. Now that air gap is there, I assume, because he's got the gluing material inside here filling the gap, and the carbon fiber tube is trying to be spaced away from the aluminium lug. He said there are glass beads inside here separating the carbon fiber tube from the aluminium in order to prevent that galvanic corrosion. But water can still get in here, water can still seep in through this gap and still create a connection, like that electrical connection between the aluminium and the carbon fiber. This, to me, is not as pretty as this. Okay, so this to me is a much nicer job, because you see the transition between this 3D printed titanium and this carbon tube here. It's almost perfect. Okay, there's very little air gap or gap here. It's a lovely smooth transition. With the framework bikes, you've got a big step. So for me, that's not as aesthetically pleasing, just from that perspective.
You paint it, and it's not going to corrode. It's important to know that there's a failure mechanism, but also that there are solutions available to engineer around it. So people will ask, why not use titanium? That's way closer. It's not removing the galvanic potential. It's reducing it. But there are a whole bunch of manufacturing trade-offs with machining billet titanium bike. Like that's that's going to be a $50,000-$60,000 bike. To machine those from. Like machining aluminum is a remarkably good material.
Because he's limited to machining, because that's the machines that he has, he doesn't have access, like Bastian do, to 3D printing titanium, which makes the process of making these very elegant, very stylish lugs much easier, because you can 3D print any shape you want. Because he doesn't have access to that, he's decided to choose aluminium because aluminium is easier to work with. So essentially what he's saying is, buy my $8,000, buy my $8,000 bicycle, because I have selected the materials, the finest materials, based on how easy it is for me to work with, not how good the materials actually are. It would be a jump from $8,000, which is what he's charging for his aluminium frame, aluminium and carbon frame, to $50,000 or $60,000 for titanium. But hang on a minute, a full titanium bike frame, and this is all machined. There's no 3D printing going on here, even though Moots, for example, who also make tie frames, do 3D print things like the dropouts and stuff like that. And there are other brands that are 3D printing titanium for full titanium frames, so it's not unheard of. Or Bastion Cycles, which are 3D printing their lugs. Their bikes are cheaper.
The CNC lugs also made in-house. John is strictly a believer in not 3D printing, because I agree it's not really there for structural components yet, although it is used. You have to insert more safety factors. CNCing, forging and things like that are way more pure processes.
However, lots of bike brands are doing it, and I haven't heard anybody. I know 2 people in Brunei with the Bastion bike. No issues so far, and they've had them for years. So let's have a look at this video I found on YouTube. This guy's testing the tensile strength, or the breaking point, of different materials. And here he's testing the strength of titanium SLM, which is selective laser melting, basically 3D printed titanium. This titanium is in 6.4, 3D printed. It doesn't break. He has to stop the test.
The titanium part didn't stretch at all, but this eye bolt with a 2600 kilogram brake load did stretch.
And here is the CNC machined titanium. So this is CNC machined versus laser printing. And I couldn't believe this.
Whoops, that was a violent break. That is almost 500 kilograms less braking strength than the 3D printed titanium part that didn't even break. Last up.
So that was exactly the same kind of titanium. Here we are, look. It's 6.4 again, same weight, everything is the same.
And that's the last of the parts broken. The 3D printed metals outperformed their CNC machined equivalents in outright tensile strength. When we compare the strongest material from each class, the differences are pretty clear. And here is the strength to weight ratio of each part. More data is available on the
So basically, all the 3D printed materials outperformed the CNC machine materials. There's nothing wrong with 3D printing. What this is just excuses. This is excuses. It's like, oh, he's a believer in CNC machining over 3D printing. No. The reason why he's not 3D printing is because he doesn't have access to that technology. That's very clear. Check this out. So this is what we're talking about here. Whereas normally with a CNC machine, you would be able to cut these apertures and holes here in this dropout, and you would be able to machine the shape of this dropout. You would not be able to put in all these air gaps. And what these are is, this adds strength to the structure. This lattice work in here, this almost honeycomb type lattice work, adds strength to the structure, but the air gaps reduce the weight. So you end up with a product which from the outside looks solid, but from the inside has got all these wonderful air gaps in it which reduce the weight. Whereas with CNC machining, even CNC machining in titanium, it would never be this light. So this is what he says about the warranty, and he's being a little bit sarcastic here, maybe a little bit pedantic, but we'll listen.
Worth saying that, like, we offer a lifetime warranty on the bikes to the original owners. I know that there's going to be the trolls saying, like, yeah, but you're going to get hit by lightning tomorrow, and then what good is my warranty? And yeah, that's just a fact of life.
Those people aren't interested in buying bikes, man, trust me.
So he says, oh, you know, kind of dismissively, oh, we offer a lifetime warranty, and the trolls are going to say, oh, what good is that if I'm dead? If I get struck by lightning, he says, which actually comes very close to my issue with this, all right? I'm not against lifetime warranties. If you're going to give me a lifetime warranty with a bike, I'm happy about that. Here's the thing. A lifetime warranty is absolutely useless. I'll tell you why. If you're coming down a mountain at 70 kilometers an hour, and as a result of galvanic corrosion on your biomaterial bike frame like this, aluminium and carbon fiber tube, you have a catastrophic failure of the frame, and you end up careening off the edge of the cliff as a result, or ending up underneath the wheels of an oncoming semi-truck. It doesn't really matter that the bike came with a lifetime warranty, because you're already dead, or you're disabled, or you're in hospital, or you're picking your teeth off the ground. And I know what that's like. It's not that much fun. What would you prefer? I'll give you a choice, okay? Here's a bike frame, cost you $8,000. There's a potential that it will catastrophically fail, but I'm going to give you a lifetime warranty. Or, alternatively, here's a bike frame, it's half the price, there's no chance that it will catastrophically fail from that same issue, which is galvanic corrosion on the joints, and it also comes with a lifetime warranty. Which one are you going to pick? A lifetime warranty isn't any good to you if the bike kills you. And who do you think you're going to get more money out of in that situation? Do you think you're going to get more money out of him, guy who runs a small workshop, who's basically running into loss right now because of all the expensive machinery he's got? Or do you think you're going to get more out of a big company like this for your family? If this thing catastrophically fails and it's proven that this was poorly made and it had a design flaw that the company knew about, okay, you're going to be able to sue Specialized for way more money for your family than you are this guy. Number one, it's an American brand, so they're used to litigation. They'll probably pay out straight away. The other thing is this guy's probably not got any money in which to sue him. And he has admitted that there is a potential flaw with the frame. Specialized have not admitted there's a potential flaw with this. This guy is actually saying, there's an issue with my frames, I've tried to prevent it from happening, but I can't guarantee it's not going to happen. Again, you would have to be mentally ill to put $8,000 worth of money into this. This is why I personally would never buy a bicycle like this. I wouldn't even buy a Bastion bike. Okay, I love the look of Bastion bikes. I think they are drop dead gorgeous. I've seen a couple in real life, and they are easily one of the most beautiful bikes you can buy. And they are very, very expensive for that reason. But if you're using two dissimilar materials, you're going to have expansion and contraction at different rates. And they actually now believe that the Titan Submarine, the latest theory, is that the Titan Submarine didn't implode around the carbon fiber tube. When the carbon fiber tubes were glued into position in the factory at room temperature of the factory floor, so that could be, if it's a hot day outside, that could be 30 degrees Celsius. And then you stick the thing in the Atlantic Ocean, and you go down several hundred meters or even 1,000 meters to the bottom of the ocean floor, which is incredibly cold. And these two materials start to shrink, but they shrink at different rates. And the shrinkage at different rates causes debonding, delamination, whatever, between the titanium and the carbon fiber. And so with these bikes, even if you don't get galvanic corrosion, there's still the potential there that you're going to get debonding as a result of heat expansion and contraction, because that's always been the problem. I have a bike like this. I have a really old early 2000s aluminium frame bicycle with carbon rear triangle that's glued into the frame. It's a relic of the past. It's a relic of the early 2000s. It's a 15, 20-year-old bike, maybe more. I don't ride that bike anymore. There's better technology available. So there you go. And that bike cost me 1,500 British pounds back in the early 2000s for a full bike, including Ultegra group set. And this one costs $8,000 US minimum, not including taxes and delivery. So there you go. All right, folks, thank you for watching. As always, when you're out riding, stay safe. And when you're out looking for a new bicycle, also stay safe. There's a lot of people out there trying to scam you into buying something that is not in your best interest. There you go. Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.